Well, hello everybody. This is Like It's 1985, and today's Something Old Something New is not a Something Old Something New Transformers review. It's going to be a Star Wars action figure review. I'll be taking a look at actually a vintage Darth Vader action figure. This actually is the actual Darth Vader that I have left over from my childhood, so it's not something that I bought after the fact as an adult. This is the actual one I had and played with as a kid. And then on our right here is the 2010 Vintage Series Darth Vader. It's been retooled, updated with greater articulation. You can see they package it in this very vintage looking card back here, so that is awesome. One thing I noticed, if you take a look, it says free Boba Fett with purchase of 5 Star Wars action figures. See details inside. Offers expires 3/31/2011. So I'm curious to see if that's actually a real offer, because if you recall, if you were a kid in the 80s, it seemed like more so then than now. Back in the 80s, they had deals like you send away, you buy a certain amount of figures, and then you send away for an exclusive figure. I really like that touch. If this is actually a real deal, then that's even better. But I like that that touch there. On the back here, you can see they have some information about the Vintage Series collection. And here is a look at the original card back. This is from the 80s. As you can see, it says Kenner right there, is the way you can tell. So really cool. This is what I remember as a kid, you know, looking through the toy aisles and seeing all these action figures. This is the card back I remember. And then they have some other figures in the same vintage series. So what I'll do is I'll open this up and take a look at the new Darth Vader and compare it to the old one. So before I open this figure up, I actually wanted to show you something kind of interesting. And if you can see where my finger is, they actually packaged the figure so that part of the cape was glued onto the card back. You know, when they sealed the card up, you can see how the cape actually got glued along with the seal for the plastic to the card back. So I was planning to remove it very carefully and maybe keep the bubble intact, but since that's the way it is, I'll probably just tear it off the card. Okay, so let's get this Something Old Something New review started. Like usual, I will start off with the old figure first. Let's take a look at the 1980s vintage Darth Vader figure. Like I said before, this is the one I had and played with as a kid. So this is really cool to have this still all these years after my childhood. Now, as you can see, he's got this really vinyl looking and vinyl feeling cape, which is pretty unique. You can see the rest of his outfit there. Now, as far as articulation goes, please do not blink, because you might miss the articulation section of this review, because this guy has very little articulation. His head is actually on a peg, and over the years the peg is kind of worn out, so he actually is like a bobblehead a little bit, but he really is left and right, and that's about it. But due to age, he can kind of wiggle his head like that. So now, shoulder articulation, simply you've got a swivel joint there. Arm does not go out at all. You have no waist and no ab articulation whatsoever. And then you have a swivel joint at the hips, so that leg can go out like that. But as you can see, below the hips there is no articulation. So kind of a antiquated figure, but nonetheless it's cool to have it from my childhood. And so on to the new figure. One of the things I noticed about the packaging that's different for these vintage 2010 figures is they come in this little plastic bubble that's inside the main bubble, so the figure actually lays in here, which is kind of an interesting change. And to answer that question I had at the beginning of the review, looks like you can send in for a special exclusive rocket-firing Boba Fett figure. On my other Star Wars figures, I did get this other figure that you can send away for as well. Probably go for the Boba Fett one though. Like I say, you never can go wrong with a Fett man. But you can see there, it's really cool to have this. You know, this brings back a lot of memories of childhood, sending away for special figures, you know, after you buy a certain amount of product of theirs. But on to the new Vader. Here's a look at the 2010 Vader's lightsaber. As you can see, it's very nicely detailed on the hilt. You've got some red translucent plastic with a little bit of molding at the base, as you can see there. Maybe similar to what you'd find on a Gundam beam saber at the base of the beam, if you can make that out. Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry. This guy does have an action feature. This is 1980s Darth Vader. So you can see how he can actuate the lightsaber coming out of his. There's just a groove there. It comes out, and as you can see, it's been chewed off a little bit, probably due to play by me. So that's his lightsaber. So back to the vintage figure here, or the 2010 Vintage Collection figure. Just a quick side-by-side visual comparison of the two. You can see that the new figure has actually two capes. One is you can see it's transparent on the wall. You can see through it, kind of a gauzy black material. But then he has kind of like an inner cloak here. So these are actually two separate cloaks. Now this figure has a surprise that I was not aware of, and I was delighted to find this out once I opened up the packaging. I'm going to go ahead and show you it right now because, well, you'll see why in a minute. Look at the head, and look what I'm about to do here. Ooh, the helmet comes off, revealing the battle-scarred or head of Anakin Skywalker. But then, dramatic face reveal. As you can see, that comes off as well, and you get a very nice detailed look at Anakin's face and a nasty-looking gash across the back of his head. Even got this detailing here. I guess I remember seeing this in the movie when he's sitting in the chamber and he's removing his helmet. Don't know exactly what those are, but they're there. Nice detail. But what I was getting at is I showed you this now because this only thing I can find about this figure that's wrong is this tends to fall off pretty easily. Well, making a liar out of me. Okay, well it'll fall off. I'm almost certain during the articulation part. So you've got articulation in the head. Let me go ahead and take it off and see if I can see. It appears to be mostly just like a swivel joint. And then you have, of course, articulation at the shoulders. But then, unlike the older 1980s one, the arm can actually go out. There's a joint for that, as you can see there. There is a swivel and a bend at the elbow. And then you get a swivel at right where his glove ends and his arm begins, or if you can see that there, if that makes any sense. So not really at his... There's not really articulation at his wrist per se, but you have his glove that can rotate around like that, which is cool. Very slight waist articulation. There doesn't appear to be any ab articulation, but you can see the detailing in his chest electronics. This belt can move like that independently. Looked around, I didn't see any clasp or anything like that, so I don't think it comes off anywhere. But it's cool that it's actually separate from the rest of the figure. You can notice how also the details in the actual armor and clothing is different. Like his codpiece here is a very shiny black, whereas you have like a leathery looking feel to his thigh here. And speaking of legs, his articulation, his legs can go out like that. Doesn't seem to go out to the side though. I don't think it's meant to. But then you have rotation at the knee, bend at the knee, as you can see there, like that. Then you have rotation at the ankle, and you actually have a hinge, so you can the actual foot can go down like that or up like that, and swivel. So I have to say, again, the idea with these vintage 2010 Star Wars figures is that they've retooled the original. And I have to say, they really did an excellent job. And what really hit it out of the ballpark for me was this removable helmet. Let me show you a look at that again. That is really cool. For a figure of this size, to have that playability. And you just put the other top of his helmet back on. Now, like I said before, it made a liar out of me on film, on video, but when I was just taking it out of the package and testing it out and so forth, it would come off quite frequently. So it just kind of depends, I guess. You know how it is. When you do a review, nothing goes right, it seems like sometimes. So here they are, the old and the new. And I've got to say, I'm really pleased that I picked up this new 2010 Darth Vader. I think I would be slightly, a little bit less pleased if it didn't have that mask, removable helmet and mask. That really, like I say, hit it out of the ballpark for me. Plus, you get the really nice lightsaber here, and should be able to hold in his hand here. Yeah, looks like he can hold it in his left hand easier, just the way his hands are sculpted, as opposed to, yeah, see, there goes his helmet. Like I said, I was saying, like as opposed to this right hand, you can see how it's pretty much open. You really can't fit the lightsaber in the right hand because of that, the way that the hands are molded. But really cool. If you're at all interested in Star Wars, I would recommend a buy, even if you're not a collector of Star Wars figures. Like I'm not a collector of Star Wars figures. I would say I'm a collector of Transformers primarily. But if you're a kid in the 80s and you grew up with Star Wars, I recommend this as a buy. I think you'll like it a lot, and I think it's worth a purchase. Okay, well, thanks for watching. This has been a something old, something new review of the older Darth Vader and the new 2010 Vintage Series Darth Vader. Thanks for watching.